You won't see it that we all know. Break my soul. You don't think that you will be it that makes us see. Break my soul. Trying to fake it never makes it that we all know. Break my soul. Never stressing, not take less, not justify love. Go round and round and circle, touching all love. So we go on and time, touching love. All right, let's get going. It's hard to stop at this part, y'all, right? Okay, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are y'all feeling? I'm hoping everybody's doing great. Please take time in the chat roll if you haven't already. Let us know where you're dialing in from. Let us know what you're excited about. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have such a packed conversation. And so I would like to set the precedence before we even begin it. To say to anyone that if any given point and anything, the conversation is a little heavy, please don't hesitate to, make sure that your cameras are off, your mics are muted. If you have to step out and come back, sometimes these conversations can be a little heavy. Our goal tonight is to not take you to a deep, dark place and leave you there. Okay. We want to have a real conversation and we want to be as authentic and transparent as we can. But our goal is to have you coming out of these conversations with solutions, with things that you can begin, things that you can start to figure out where you are in your journey and where you're going next, right? Because that's the whole goal, to figure out how to keep moving forward no matter what. And tonight we have to bless the stage with a nice full deck with people with a variety, of different experiences and things who also really I have to say this. It's one thing to be a person qualified for a conversation. It's another thing to be those who choose to have it. So for me, when I think about this set of people, we're talking about individuals who not only have weathered a storm or two, but who have chosen to come here on the virtual platform and share a little bit of how they did it, right? So I'm joined on stage by our Bedroom Candy community leaders, and I'll start off with Coach T, who is also a sexologist and a personal growth coach. This is someone who is an amazing performer, top performer at Bedroom Candy and our consultant advisory council, but has also made her passion, her mission, and everything that she does. So welcome, Coach T. We've also got here on the virtual stage our BK sister, Randa, who you see here as Trinity, who is a respected leader within the Bedroom Candy community straight out of DC. She's someone who takes her commitment to education and self-care and blends it with her sexual health knowledge and brings that in everything she does at Bedroom Candy. She wants to shake up the status quo, y'all, is what she said her mission is, and kind of start having conversations about some of the deep things. We're also blessed by LaDonya, who's known by many as Lady D, who is a Bedroom Candy consultant and our consultant advisory council as well, who's big on really busting up those stigmas and having conversations about intimacy. She's got experience, not just from her profession, but 17 years of marriage tucked under that belt will teach you a thing or two, who is also here to share her passion with you. And finally, last and not certainly least, Christopher Dozier, who is also really somebody I'm really honored to welcome to the stage. Christopher means so much to the Bedroom Candy community because not only do we have men in our consultant community, but it's amazing to have them join us in leadership. And Christopher has earned his way there and has been such a positive contribution. But we're talking about someone who's also had different experiences himself, who's come here to share those with you and help you understand how to overcome them. Not only is he out there in Phoenix, but he's somebody who likes to actively be a part of really the LGBTQ plus scene and kind of giving a different perspective in tonight's conversation. So welcome, welcome, welcome to our leaders. My name is Tasha Johnson, and I am here to talk to you guys. I'm also a clinical sexologist and bedroom, and I bleed black and gold. I tell people I bleed black and gold. I'm a Bedroom Candy community true and through. But I'm also here to share with you guys some of my experiences, but also help you find some solutions. We're going to blend that expertise. So I hope you guys realize that the people who are having this conversation are individuals who have dedicated their lives to this. So I'm not going to hold you up. I want us to kind of start off in this conversation with hearing from some of our presenters. If each of you guys could take 2 minutes to share a little bit about why you're a part of this conversation, and if you're comfortable sharing a bit of your survivor story, you can do so as well. And I'll start in the order of how I'm seeing folks on my screen. LaDonia, can you tell us a little bit about why you wanted to be a part of this event tonight?
So, good evening, everyone. The reason why I wanted to speak about this platform is because so many of us brown, Black women, men have been traumatized by sexual assault or molestation. And I am a survivor of being molested at a young age. And I took back my power. And this is something that people need to realize that we need to do, and this platform is something that we can help each other heal and get past that. So that's why I'm here.
Can you guys hear me okay? Forgive me, I think my connection to my camera went out right when you were speaking. So there we go. Okay. Thank you, Lady D. I was like, I don't know what just happened. Also, in addition to that, I would love to ask for Trinity to share a little bit about herself. Why did you join us in today's conversation and choose to be a part of this event?
Well, A, I bleed black and gold. So it's always a time when these folks get together. And B, it was really a topic that not a lot of people have these conversations. And that's really why I joined Bedroom Candy, to have these conversations. And it really, I'm a survivor as well. And it is being able to be open and have the conversations, creating an environment where people are comfortable, acknowledging and being able to move forward and getting those resources and tips. So I'm super excited for what we got going on tonight.
Thank you, Randa. Appreciate you. Coach T.
Yes, ma'am. I joined this conversation tonight because I'm just somebody who has figured out how to use the superpowers that we all have. I heard LaDonya taking back her power, and we can do that by using superpowers. And that's the superpower to the ability to transform anything negative into something positive, and to take painful experiences like sexual trauma and turn it into powerful purposes. And so I did that when I had to embark on the journey of learning how to overcome childhood sexual trauma. I'll get a little bit more into that as we go into tonight. But I had to figure out how to overcome that so that I could be the best and highest version of myself. And I'm a firm believer that when you figure out how to overcome something, then you turn back and help others who share your story learn how to overcome it too. And so that's why I'm here tonight. I'm excited to do that. I do it for a living, like our amazing directive trainer told you earlier. Like, I coach women and young girls, and even not just on the sexual trauma side, because we'll learn tonight that many things can be traumatic. So just anything traumatic that a female of any age has been through, teaching them how to overcome that so they can be their best and highest version of themselves too. So I'm looking forward to getting into some things tonight with y'all.
Yes. I love what you said about not just figuring it out, but also giving it back. And I think that's the biggest. I think y'all gonna get tired of hearing how that comes across in this conversation, but that's really what the bread and butter is. And Chris, can you talk to us a little bit? Tell us why you are here tonight. What made you want to be a part of this conversation?
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? So this is your bedroom candy number one male. Hey, so I wanted to be a part of this because I can bring a unique perspective. As some of the people might assume, men don't have sexual trauma. That's a false. You know, guys of all types get sexual trauma and other abuse and other trauma. So I want to bring that perspective as well as the LGBTQ perspective from my point of view. And so I want to just add to what the ladies bring and add a little bit of extra spice, a little bit of salt and pepper.
I love that. And thank you so much, because I think you're so right. And it's so important for inclusivity to be had in these conversations. So many of them can be central around maybe thinking only certain people or certain communities are impacted by them. But what we start to realize once we start talking, right? Once we have the space where we can talk, is that there's so much more repressed things that are not brought to the surface. And then we don't realize, guys, the longer term effect, not only on yourself, but potentially your relationships with people. And not just intimate ones, because people seem to think that certain traumas only impact your romantic relationships, but your friendships and your just comfort interacting with people in general. So thank you so much for all of that. To answer my own question with you guys, I always say to people, best way I could Cliff Notes version it is that I'm like a Lemony Snicket story when it came to trauma. Anyone who's familiar with Lemony Snicket's knows that it follows they call it a series of unfortunate events because it follows a story of two siblings who no matter what couldn't get a break, right? They felt like every time it felt good, it wasn't good. And so for me, I'm here because when it comes to trauma, sometimes I have to work harder to figure out which traumas I haven't experienced yet, right? And so I'm wearing purple majestic lips tonight as a DV survivor, right? I'm someone who was a sexual assault survivor. I've experienced reproductive traumas more times than I would like, and somehow have found a way to still show up and embody who I am as a person confidently, enthusiastically, happily, and authentically. Like this is truly how I feel, right? And so a lot of people would think after certain experiences, you automatically, the more you go through, the more you start to get counted out, right? This person's gonna be screwed up. So I want to help others who may have not only experienced trauma, but some of us who've been repeat visitors of trauma has knocked on our door more than once, that it's still possible to come out with a big bright smile, and a big bright smile that's truly who you are. So huge part of becoming a sexologist, and I'll say this, is I encountered a customer just selling dildos on a Saturday, like we do at Bedroom Candy every now and again. And had a young lady who was so comfortable with me who shared that she had been sexually assaulted. And I realized in that moment, I wasn't qualified, right? I wasn't qualified to help this woman. And it was a conversation. I didn't want to not be qualified, but my responsibility knew that when you aren't qualified, you shouldn't be having certain conversations. But I knew I never wanted to be in a situation again where I could say I wasn't qualified. So I think a lot of us have had these life-changing experiences and moments that have helped us on a direction on our path of figuring out where we're going, and all led us to Bedroom Candy. Look at that, right? So you'll see throughout the night that BK is a huge common denominator. We have different stories and different experiences, but at the end of the day, we all chose this passion and purpose of empowering, educating, and earning individuals through it. Earning with individuals through it. So to kind of kick into gear, I just want to first quick check on the line. All right. Just a raise of a hand, an emoji, or something in the chat if you can identify yourself as someone who fits into this group. Because once we do this, if you or someone you know is impacted by the statement that I'm about to make, let me know. Okay. So trauma is defined, guys, as a response to a deeply distressing or disturbing event, right? An upsetting event or occurrence, plain and simple. A deeply distressing or disturbing event that has a lasting effect that can be negative on that individual, right? So we talk about trauma coming in rainbows, but if you're somebody who has experienced a deeply distressing or disturbing event, please let us know, right? Just tell me, put up a hand, shoot an emoji, something, okay? We got a couple of hands going up in the chat, some hearts, some thumbs up, all kinds of things. People in the chat, all of it. And you guys, keep that going. Just keep it going. Don't let it stop. Because it's important that we see how many people raising their hands. Because the first part of the conversation of trauma is understanding that we're not alone in it. Even if it looks different, we're not alone in it, because as we're seeing, and it's still coming, we've all had some deeply distressing or disturbing events at some point of life, right? So in order to first acknowledge whether you need to figure out what pleasure looks like after trauma, you have to first realize whether you had one, right? And that's where we're starting. But once we start to understand what is trauma, then we have to look at what potential effects it can have on us, right? And in that conversation, and I'm going to tag my girl Coach T in on this one here, right? We understand that it comes in certain ways. It could be a car accident. It could be losing a significant loved one. It could be an act of violence. It could be as simple as anal sex. Okay, we had a long talk, y'all, before this call as we were preparing, and we all acknowledged that there was some more to talk about a thing going in that rear area, right? But really, it's realizing that even trying something as simple as that, and it going the wrong way, could traumatize the hell out of you, because I don't care what nobody say. The first time I tried it, it was a deeply distressing or disturbing event, all right? It fit perfectly into it. But the point in that is that once we start to look at the effects, we have to realize that sometimes it can put people on one side of the spectrum or another coming out of experiencing certain traumas when it comes to how they then venture into sex and how they venture into sexuality. So T, I know you have a really, really a really great way of helping people understand, maybe even separating, figuring out which side of the line they might fall on when it comes to their sexuality as a result of trauma. So can you talk to us a little bit about some of the effects that can come of trauma that might impact your sexuality? Hold on, T. We on mute. Don't be giving
Sorry.
it's only to yourself now. Look.
And thank you for having my back, girl. But especially when it comes to things like sexual trauma, over 80% of the people who experiences it from somebody that they know. Like in my personal experience, it was the person who like was supposed to be my first protector, supposed to just be there, show me the first way, like how men are supposed to love me. And it was my father, my biological father, took my virginity. And when you're experiencing something like that, it can have a whole lot of effects on you, just starting from the space of, well, one, relationships. When someone close to you causes trauma to you, it's kind of hard to form relationships. Not even talking about with love. Thank God that, you know, I found my husband. He just blessed me with a good man. I couldn't get it. I would never know. And that took me a long time to get over that effect of recognizing that I would never know what it's like to be a daddy's girl, like to have that father-daughter relationship. That was a big effect. But God blessed me with an amazing husband. We've been together for 15 years. But not even just romantic, but even platonic. You afraid to let people get close because when somebody close to you causes you trauma, you think everybody's gonna do that, so you become closed off. Another effect is you experience anxiety. So just going into the mental health realm, a lot of anxiety around things. Let's not add if you are a parent and you have experienced sexual trauma, then you have anxiety about your child. Like you don't want your child to go everywhere. You're overprotective of them, and you try to find that zone in the middle so you're not causing them to live a sheltered life, but that's one of the things that comes with it. Also, like self-worth. Again, majority of people who experience sexual trauma, it comes from somebody they know. And when it's that close, like in my case, like with my dad, it's like, am I worthy of someone loving me? These are things, effects that I had to learn how to get over. Like if my own dad did that, like who else will love me the way I need to be loved? So you battle with your self-worth. You even battle with things like, I always never had a problem showing up confidently, but would feel kind of wrong for showing up. Like any type of attention, you think that it's something wrong. Like you don't want to get it because you think that you did something in that moment. That's the effect that it has on you. Like you don't want to cause any attention because that might have been what caused your trauma in the first place, or the things that happened to you. And then on the sexual side too, so many effects. We ain't even got into post-traumatic stress disorder, things that effects I had to learn how to overcome, having nightmares. I remember there was a point where I really did, like I was afraid to even talk to my therapist about what my dad had did because that man was crazy. And I thought that if he found out that I was telling somebody that he would find me and do something to harm me again. So like it's so much that comes with it. But then even like on the intimacy side, most individuals who have experienced sexual trauma, they end up either becoming hyposexual or hypersexual. And so on the hypo end, that's where, you know, they don't even have any desire to have sex. They've been so traumatized that they can't even figure out how to have pleasure. And that's why we in the building tonight to teach you how to take your pleasure back and find pleasure in a space where you once experienced trauma. But then on that other end, people become hypersexual. And so again, like my personal experience, I ended up on that hypersexual side. And that's where you can have a tendency to become oversexual and find yourself in situations you don't need to be in, risky stuff. Like I ended up, a lot of people don't know, I don't share this story, I ain't ashamed of it, but I ended up in a strip club. And I always knew that painful experiences was meant to be taken and turned into powerful purposes or change it into a positive. But back then, like before I matured and understood how to do it, that was my way. I was like, I'm not gonna see sex as a traumatic thing. I'm gonna go up in here and I'm gonna take back my body and I'm gonna be in control of it. And letting me in some stuff I ain't need to be in. But thank God for bedroom candy because it has given me a positive outlet now. But there's so many other effects of trauma, and it's important for you, if you're the person who experienced the trauma, to know those effects. But also, if you are in a relationship, whether romantic or platonic, your friend, has experienced trauma, to understand these things so you can understand how to, to take them a little bit better.
That is so on point. And I think to lend to what was said in the chat, we have to thank you for being brave enough to share, right? First and foremost. Before we even started this, we had to take a moment, y'all, right? Because these are conversations. Here's what I'll say to folks, though. What I love and the beauty in what I just heard from UT is that we all have trauma, but there's a point in which you are traumatized, right? And there's a point in which you can acknowledge that the trauma existed, right? And it may not. You might, the first couple times several times it might break you down every time you think about it. If you think long enough about it, you might find yourself randomly breaking into tears in a random place, like, go get it together. Then it reaches a point where you have a clarity about that trauma. And that doesn't come until you do the work, right? And I think a lot of times, and I want to take a moment to encourage anybody in this conversation, if you have not already done so, to seek that help, whether it be by way of a support group, right, by a therapist, right, by someone who is trained and qualified, because you do want to make sure that you're doing it in an environment, not only of safety, but where you don't potentially introduce new traumas or triggers to yourself that you didn't even know existed, right? So when you spoke to you about the effects, the biggest piece that is that no two people will process trauma the same. So how I respond, how you respond could be completely different to the same exact trauma, right? And you shared about the hypo and the hyper and how some people dive deeper into sexuality while some people are like, I can't. I think because in my instance, right, I had a parent who was suffering from a mental disorder. So wasn't always herself, right? And so my response to trauma became stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. So there are a lot of people who experience traumas, and as opposed to they already got a game plan. They know how they're going to tackle it. They know how they're going to tuck it away, how they're going to compartmentalize it. And they're so good at it that sometimes you're looking at a person and they look like this. But oftentimes it's not how they feel. So I appreciate what you shared, because I think what I would love for everyone to focus on that came out of it is that you gotta have some level of an awareness. And if you find yourself at a point where you're struggling to figure out where you are after your trauma, that means that there's some work that you might need to revisit or do. Now, in the spirit of talking about that acknowledgement, right, I want to ask you, LaDanya, on this one, because I think everyone here at the beginning, we had a couple eyes that said, yes, I acknowledge that I'm somebody who has had a trauma. But, kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous or any of those things, the first thing they do is make you say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I am this. But then after that, I find that there's this difficult part where once you realize it exists, you're either going to do something about it or not, right?
Right.
And so, D, I want to ask if you can talk to folks a little bit about acknowledging trauma. What did that look like for you, right? Confronting it in order to be able to begin actually processing and dealing with it.
That's funny you say that, because as you were talking, I thought about when did I acknowledge that it happened? And I remember it happened to me about the age between 7 and 8, but I didn't acknowledge it until I was about 17 or 18. And it was because of a whole bunch of dynamics. My mother didn't talk to me about sex. And my daddy used to tell me if somebody touched me, he was going to kill him. So I didn't acknowledge that somebody touched me inappropriately. And so I didn't know how to express that. And so, like T talked about, being hypersexual, doing different things and journey. And once I realized and acknowledged that I was molested, I took my power back. But acknowledgement is the first step. And as you said earlier, like sometimes you don't realize you've been touched inappropriately or you've had a traumatic event until you smell something, you hear a song, you see something, and it triggers. Your body protects yourself sometimes from trauma. And so a lot of times I like to tell people, acknowledge that something happened to you. Give yourself the compassion and the grace to say, it happened to me, but that doesn't mean I'm that. I'm not that trauma. I passed that. I'm still past that, and once you acknowledge it, then you can take it head on. And that means understanding your triggers. First, self-acknowledgement. You have to know what makes me cringe, what makes me uncomfortable. Have safe words. And if you have a partner, express to them what happened to you. And something I do with our customers at a party, I talk about my triggers because triggers are important when it comes to sex. Um, and my trigger is fingers because I was molested. I don't like fingers. I don't like to be fingered or anything. And so I acknowledged that. I had to acknowledge that to my partner, my husband, that we cannot use this, but we can use different things. And I took my power back by implementing different things so that I can still receive pleasure. I can still give pleasure. So acknowledgement is just the first thing that you have to do to take back your power when it comes to being sexually traumatic or just going through any trauma. So that's just something that, we as people that have been through something to acknowledge that and then take the necessary steps to heal. And so that's what I do. That's what I talk to people. I always and being vulnerable in that setting of a party and say, I don't like fingers. So I don't use, don't allow my husband to do that. But I'll subsidize being clitoris stimulated by a toy. So that's something and how I get past that.
I love that, Zion, because and we didn't even get to the recommendation part, but she just gave a major thing and how her ability to acknowledge her trauma allowed her to acknowledge the trigger of said trauma and have a healthy conversation with her partner to help avoid it being brought up, right? Unintentionally or necessarily, by realizing that when this happens, it makes me think of it. But at the same time, right, being a consultant, sure had the access to a whole lot of these things, found some other things that could be the finger instead. And so the positive in that conversation being that it allows you and empowers you to find a solution that still allows you to access the pleasure, maybe shoot in a more, right? And but also create that safe communication with your partner. People don't talk about certain things with their partner sometimes, and not realizing that you don't enable a person to really deliver you pleasure and do that if they don't have certain information that can impact how they engage you. So thank you for that share because that was huge. And from what you were speaking on, I know in a conversation we were having before this, we learned some things about each other that maybe some of us didn't know. And one of which was in a conversation with you, Chris. Right. So I want to turn to you real quick because you spoke and you said something that is stuck with me. I don't know about I'm sure the rest of the ladies here will agree. When you talked about how experiencing bullying fed your hypersexuality, I was like, I would have never thought, right? That this type of trauma could lead to this type of response, which is where going back to what he said, nobody responds the same. Can you talk to us a little bit about the relationship between some of that trauma you experienced being bullied and how that correlated into how it showed up in your sexuality a little bit?
Yeah. And I'm already getting emotional. I didn't think this was gonna happen, but so let me start by saying, just pulling from what T was saying as far as hypersexual versus hyposexual. So when we spoke about this, I mentioned the hypersexual part, but there's really another component of it as far as the hyposexual, the less sexual part of it. So what I did share with the ladies during our powwow, our getting together, is that during my high school, grade school years, I was bullied a lot, for being who I am, living in my truth, etc., being a gay male. Even though I didn't admit to it, it's hard to show all this amazingness, right? And so, y'all laugh, I'm serious. It was, I can't be, I think
You can't dim that light, right?
I could try to, but I can't dim that light, right? And so I would get bullied a lot. And the thing about it is that I would get bullied by multiple guys at once. And sometimes there was the girl up under the mix bullying me as well. Now, keeping something I didn't clarify, that's why I was taking some notes here, is that these were all Black men. I never got my ass beat or whooped. And when I say ass beat, I got my ass beat. I'm not a fighter, so I'll admit it. But it was always Black men bullying me and whooping my ass. And it was always like 3 or more on one person, okay? three or more on one person, and all I knew to do was either run, hide, or scream for help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that happened like every day through my grade school years up until I finally graduated. And so kind of what happened is that transition, and this is more recent than not, but it kind of settled into my soul and then kind of blossomed in my late 20s, if that makes sense. And since about the age of 25, 26, and I'm now 34, going to be 35 this year, I do not enjoy sex. I do not enjoy one-on-one sex. Sometimes I'll have one-on-one sex, but that does not give me the full orgasm. It just doesn't. There's so much more to, just like women are very complex, sexuality as a whole is complex. There's more to it than just the release of your cum, of your squirt, whatever. There's more to it than just that. And I get full pleasure when when it's multiple. So three or more. And the reason why I wanted to go back and say the hyper versus the hyposexual is because, and I hate to admit this because this is like some self-loathing part of it, but I love myself. I love all men. I love all ladies, but I only like group sex with white men. And that leads me another part that I didn't share with y'all is that there's an element of like race play there. You know what I mean? There's an element of race play there, which is like, damn, do you hate yourself that much? I don't hate myself, but you know what I mean? There's just some internalized things there that just have to be unpacked. And that's the reason why I want to be a part of this, because there's so many things, there's so many different layers to sexuality that we don't address. And I go through my head always unpacking the different layers of why I choose this, why I enjoy this, why does this really get me there, and this little bit doesn't. And so there's different things like I don't enjoy, one-on-one sex, and I prefer in a group, three or more, and preference is white men, because white men never kicked my ass, black men did. So there's also the element of that I'm also terrified of some black men, very terrified. And if you ever catch me in certain situations, I shy from confrontation with a black man because that's still internalized really, really hard. And so if you ever catch me switching it up from being, hey girl, hey, to, hey, what's up, bro? How you doing? It's because of that internalized phobia that I have. I don't want to get my ass beat ever again. That was not a good feeling. So yeah, that's kind of what I shared. And then let me just add this one last part too, is that I also have an issue with intimacy. I've had long-term friends and even long-term boyfriends that have just left me high and dry. And at least from the last, I would say 3 years, 2 or 3 years, I've lost a strong desire to build an intimate relationship. Let me break that down. So I prefer to not be close. I prefer it to be just surface. And it's all part of those different layers of that sexuality.
I'll say this. Oh Lord Jesus. I don't know if the prayer was enough, y'all. We might need a little bit more. I gotta find my bottle of Jack for after this. Chris, let me tell you something. The amount of power and transparency in your statement, I'm so grateful. I'm blessed to be in this conversation with you. When you speak, let's take for 2 seconds about the fact that you're a black male, and a gay male, and set it to the side, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm a mom of sons, and we as parents, we're always looking to also prepare and arm our children to not potentially have to deal with the traumas we may have. And the fact that you just opened my mind and the perspective to potential cause or effect of a certain cause that I would have known, but no one might not be considering that type of thing could lead to shaping or molding what certain stuff looks like for you. Do you know what I mean? taken time to think it through, understand it, is a part of that conversation that we're encouraging those to do. This conversation is not because everybody has the same traumas. It's to help you recognize them, acknowledge them, and then start to look at how they potentially have showed up for you in other ways that you may not have been as aware of. And so I want to thank you for bringing an awareness to bullying that I never considered personally, because it helps arm me to better protect my boys, to look out for certain things. So thank you for that, right? People talk about something called trauma bonding, right? And how some you spoke about just really, brought that to the surface. And we're not going to go deep into that right now, but for those who hear that, just look into what that means, because it's really just talking about how sometimes people bond over things that they enjoy together and that they love doing together, and we love to cook and we love to travel, but sometimes people draw over the fact that we both had drug abusing moms, or we both had, so sometimes your traumas can also be the connecting factors. And if you recognize that they exist, I do want to encourage you to not only talk about them with each other, but also empower each other to also seek guidance together, get couples counseling, things like that, so that you can ensure that once you heal from those traumas, your connection doesn't suddenly disappear, right? Taking that, I want to talk about the solution. Now, the solution looks different for everyone, and there's so many varieties of solutions. But the purpose of tonight is for us to first identify, share, and acknowledge, but more so to talk to you about how you can begin the process. Now, I will make this blanket statement for anyone who hasn't had therapy, and if you are in therapy or are planning to start, you want to always kind of pair this with the conversations that you might be having with your counselor. You also do a lot of client to client. One of the most common things I have come across personally in the profession as a sexologist is finding that a lot of people have done therapy. They've gotten a lot of help to unpack their trauma, but the part where it comes to how do I get back to discovery is where a lot of people feel lost, or they also feel like a lot of medical professionals lack a level of understanding about sexuality and what that looks like. So people go into kinks and BDSM and goes to all these different ways that sexuality can go. And sometimes, unfortunately, even our professionals in the field don't have a understanding of certain parts of that, right? So let me make sure that my clarity, can you guys hear me okay? Okay.
At
If you
this
can,
moment, yeah, right now, yes, but it was getting real good. So we was like, oh,
Yeah,
so
I think
but
people
don't
hearing
let me
myself,
look,
you
don't.
should turn the cameras off. Because
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
we had
gonna
that
say,
issue the first time.
don't let me run my mouth all yellow and whatnot, and y'all can't hear me. It's nothing for me to mute, switch a connection while somebody else do they talking. But if it gets choppy, let me know so it don't sound like I'm saying trauma, spank that ass, and then they be like, what is she saying between? I was kidding. Don't ask me. I used to get my ass whooped while I suddenly be picking out instruments to get paddled with now. Sometimes your trauma show up different. But the point that I'm making is we're at the point where we're getting to the solutions. Some of the solutions. So I want to ask Randa to first join and on stage for this part of the conversation and kind of open it up, because we're going to talk about pleasure mapping. Okay. Understanding what feels good and how to explore your body. Now, I do want to give this preface and say this is a subject that we're going to discuss mostly from the space of how you begin it on your own. But these are practices that and I'll give you some tips on how you can take it and elevate it to share if you do have an intimate partner, a loved one who you want to help further the work with, so that they're part of the process with you. But essentially, Randa, can you talk to everyone and tell them a little bit about what is pleasure mapping? What does it mean when we say that?
absolutely. I mean, just before we get there, can I just say that thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing your story. I mean, it is good, like it's going off in the chat. It's so much support. It's really good to hear survivor stories. And really, before we kind of dig into the pleasure mapping, I just want to, because we've been working on this, present from an educational standpoint, but I'm an empath. So it's all right here. So I just want us to take a quick second to ground ourselves with a quick breathing exercise, okay? Just close your eyes if you want to, if you're comfortable, and take a nice deep breath in through the nose, counting to 4. Hold it for a little bit, and then let it out slowly through your mouth. Okay, just through the nose, hold it for 4. Because wow, I mean, just wow. In having hearing those survivor stories, I'm able to recognize and connect even more dots. This is why I love Bedroom Candy. Like, I wasn't able to have these conversations before. It wasn't commonplace. Okay, so now that I hope everybody's feeling a bit more centered, when you're taking, let's talk about the next steps after we've acknowledged the trauma, right? And the next part of the journey, the pleasure mapping, is really about showing yourself kindness and beginning to heal in the right ways, in the right spaces. So with this, you're going to take time to get to know yourself. You're going to spend intentional time with yourself. And that's something that wasn't a concept until I really delved into the world of Bedroom Candy. I can recognize things now. I can recognize a lot of things just based on your story. So I'm a little flustered because I'm like, oh shit. But all right. It was really good. So picture this. You're setting some time aside to pamper yourself, to do the things that calm your nerves and bring you peace. This step is crucial because it lays down the foundation for healing to happen. Okay, we want to take the edge off. We want to take away any anxiety that can creep in. And if there's anybody who's an expert on anxiety and ADHD, listen. And now I can see the how my desire for perfection comes into play. I can see how I'm more comfortable with women than I am with men. I can see how I like to be dominated in this way, and I've really become a very timid, yes sir, no, yes ma'am, very quickly. So discovery, and like everybody said, everybody's body is different, right? Everyone has got its own story, its own way of feeling pleasure, and understanding your body's signals, what feels good, what doesn't, the yeses, the nos. It's a journey of empowerment. And it's one of the reasons when I joined Bedroom Candy, but I know we're going to say that for later. So through pleasure mapping, it's a mouthful. Ask yourself, where do I like to be touched? How do different sensations make me feel? The exploration is about taking back control of your body and your pleasure. And let me tell you, once you start to understand your own pleasure map, you can bring that knowledge into your relationships. Discovering your body's yeses and your no responses can be phenomenal. And sharing it with your partner can lead to even better communication and like a deeper intimacy built on total and mutual respect. Because your partner is going to want to be intentional about your pleasure, just like you're intentional about your pleasure. So with pleasure mapping, and we're going to dig deep into it now, it's really reclaiming your body and your joy in a way that feels safe and empowering. Okay. So next up, I'm going to bring to the virtual stage Miss Coach T Lane. And Coach is going to shed some more light and dig a bit deeper. I know we went a little bit with the hypo and the hyper, and I'm like, talk to me some more, Coach. I'm picking up what y'all putting
And
down.
I
This is
think the
really
thing
good.
is, once you identify, see, when you are hyper or hypo, right, what your discovery of sex might look like, or your sexuality might look like, might be different. So I'm wondering, can you share some tips for the hypo person on where they might be getting their pleasure mapping versus the hyper person who maybe went deep into sex and now have to dial back and figure out some things about themselves that they didn't learn along the way?
Yeah, and before I jump into that though, when our brother Chris was sharing, and I love transparent, vulnerable. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'll probably be in my feelings too much, but I love that you felt this was a safe space to share your story, and you made me think about and maybe kind of ties into Randall what you were saying. Pleasure mapping first starts with mindset. I was just having a conversation about this with our sister and our brother Nani and Dion. Part of our BK family, shout out to them. But it starts with mindset. And when you have experienced trauma, the first thing with pleasure mapping is you got to get rid of those limiting beliefs that was placed on you by those traumatic situations. What people told you sex was supposed to be, what people told you, whether directly or indirectly, what pleasure was supposed to be. And you got to figure out what it is for you. So, brother Chris, I just want to say I love that you figured out what that pleasure meant for you, no matter what it may look like to anybody else. So that's the first part. Get rid of the beliefs that was placed on you directly or indirectly so you can figure out what pleasure is for you, what you like. And then when it comes to the hyposexual side, if you are the hyposexual person or you are in a relationship with someone who is hyposexual, you got to start with, I like to call it outer course. Just forget the intercourse for a second. Like, especially if the person experienced trauma through penetration. Let's forget the intercourse and just focus on outer course, helping them to feel like that intimacy without sex and a orgasm being involved. Do stuff like lay in a bed and just massage each other. One of the things that I like for my husband to do, we have this amazing lubricant. I think someone's gonna talk about it later, but I like to just lay and watch my little ratchet TV shows like Love and Hip Hop. Real Housewives of Potomac. The reunion, that part 3 reunion was crazy. But I just like to lay in bed and let them use the lube and, just give me a clitoris massage. We ain't got to do no intercourse. That's just outer course. With him, he loves a good foot rub. So I love using another one of our products that we're going to show y'all later. Like, just giving him a foot rub. He feels like he's going to get an orgasm from there. But taking that time to make that person feel valued and wanted and the affection without intercourse and little by little leading up to it. And you can start like taking those steps once you just giving a massage on non-genital body parts, not the breast, not the genital area. Then the next, once you've done that for a couple days, and this is, I'm giving y'all an exercise I give my women and their partners when I'm coaching them. But after you've done that for a couple days, then move up to touching the genitals and stuff, still without intercourse, but first, like, just take it slow with that person and help them to realize, and you yourself realize too first, what you like. And then on the hypersexual side, if you are hypersexual or you're in a relationship with someone who's hypersexual, one of the things that I grew to realize is that sexual energy, especially when someone who's been traumatized sexually, sometimes, again, going back to getting rid of those limiting beliefs, you grow to believe that the only way to express sexual energy is through the act of sex, through the physical form of it. And what I have grown to learn over the years is that sexual energy is just creative energy, and it doesn't have to just be used as sex. So help that person, or if you are that person, figure out other ways to express it. It can be through dancing. It can be through art. Like, even when I work with girl moms and their daughters, I teach them, like, we don't want to shame them. Like, sex is a natural part of life. Without it, the human, we will all become extinct. We will not exist. So when they're experiencing these natural things, just teach them it's a creative energy and teach them other outlets to use it in rather than the physical, because we don't want our babies to have sex at a young age. But yeah, that hypersexual person, just figure out other outlets. Even in sports, if you're a male, I don't know a lot about sports. I'm not a sports girl, but I know that when it comes playoff time, like in the NBA and stuff, like, a lot of coaches tell their players to refrain from sex. They want them to pour that sexual energy into the game so they can win the championship. So just with that, just find other outlets. And then my other piece that I will give, like with finding your pleasure, is understanding, like, what is it? Like, what's causing you to be so hypersexual? What is that feeling that you're looking for? Because sometimes it's not a nut. When I was very hypersexual, like, I wasn't even getting something out of it. I wasn't getting no orgasm or anything, but I was just being very hypersexual. And I had to realize it was, my dad, who was my abuser, he so twisted would mix love so much into his abuse, and it, like, blurred that line for me. So I realized that I was looking for love and attention. When he wasn't abusing me, he wasn't paying me no attention. So, like, you figure out, like, what is the underlying root cause for your hypersexualness and what it is you're looking for, and find other ways to get that. And if you're the partner of that person who's hypersexual, try to understand that too, so you can find other ways to give it to them without sex?
Oh Lord, Random had used that word empath a minute ago, and baby, my bells is, I'm a Pisces, y'all. We live at the deep of the bottom blue. We didn't want so let me say this. T, you spoke when you were speaking about hypersexuality. I found also, not just in myself, because I'm one of those people who definitely had a more hypersexual response at first, and then a period of pure hypo to read, because it just didn't make no sense. It was like, pause, what are we doing? You know? And so to kind of to talk deeper about pleasure mapping, as we kind of go into the phase where we're going to recommend some things that you can incorporate to map your pleasure. I want you to think about some of the meaningful questions that Randa asked. Personally, I didn't acknowledge my sexual assault until I started going to therapy for my domestic abuse. Okay. For me, I think because sexual assault, people, when you're growing up, you're conditioned to only think it looks like one thing. Maybe somebody entered your body or penetrated you with something or things of that nature. For me, I've experienced sexual assault, unfortunately, twice before the age of 18 as a woman. And for those who don't know, 1 in 4 African American women will have, before the age of 18, experienced a form of sexual assault. And for men, 1 in 5. Numbers ain't that far. The reality of it is, because my first introduction to sexual assault came by way of a close relative of mine making me watch them please themselves. So I didn't know I was being assaulted because they didn't touch me. I didn't realize that the deep level of exposure to their sexual stuff repeatedly was sexualizing me, right? We have to be mindful that later on that turned into voyeurism for me, right? When I figured it out and I understood, why am I so stimulated by the sight of sexual activity? Well, because my introduction to sex started there. So when I began to map my pleasure, right, and learning about pleasure mapping, I had a really phenomenal doctor who was also in the space of teaching around sex education, introduced the concept to me. And it was the first time I heard it. And the first thing they said is, you want to watch for how you respond to things. And for me, when I first began, I couldn't get past that phase. I couldn't get past the watch. I didn't like to look at myself naked. I didn't like to look at my faces when I was experiencing pleasure. I was confused about whether it looked like I was having a good time or pain. I don't know about y'all. Some about orgasm faces is confusing as hell. And for a period, because I was like, girl, I look like it hurt. Why are you looking like that? But so I'm starting to think, is this what my partner is seeing? I had so many crazy questions, but I definitely was the girl. And if you can relate to this, help me understand. But baby, I hit 300 something pounds. 356 is my ceiling. And I used to get the little tank top that was loose on the stomach, but had a V cut on the breast, because I felt like it was highlighting something that I thought was sexy to look at, but hiding all the stuff that I thought didn't look good. And that would be my lingerie, right? And I purposely used to put on these little outfits that looked like I was just chilling in the house, because I didn't like the sight of what I looked like, despite the fact that my partner could tell me 20 times over that they loved it. I didn't like what it looked like. So in therapy, what I learned about pleasure, when I began to venture on it, is that I had to first deal with the trauma of being exposed to watching someone masturbate over and over and over again, right? And how that related to my relationship with masturbation. Because of that, I used to hide it. I was not comfortable with it. I didn't tell my mother the first time that I was in the bathroom, y'all, and the shower head was on top and it dropped. And I had one of those shower heads with the, you know the ones we talk about, the shower heads that we now make perfect use of in adulthood. But it passed by my clitoris when the head was doing all of this, falling off the top of the thing. And that water passed me. And I felt it on my clitoris and I was like, woo, it was like a shock. But then I was like, I'm curious, what happens if I put it back? So my first breath for masturbation happened by that. But what I realized is that I was ashamed to show what it looked like to have pleasure. Bottom line is, with pleasure mapping, the first thing that you have to be aware is how your senses respond to sexual stimulation or any type of stimulation. Because until I understand how much sight took a role, I couldn't take charge of it. Right. And so ask yourself not just where you like to be touched, not just why you don't like to be touched a certain place, not how, and only that question, not how strong or intense you want it to be, because we don't realize is in order to answer these questions, you have to have a deep awareness of your senses. I can't tell you the level of intensity I like if I don't understand what, don't kill me, y'all, but your proprioceptive sense, right, is the sense that most people don't talk about. Proprioceptive, or in other words, the sense in your body that helps you regulate force, push and pull. So whether you like or you need a little bit more of a gentle stroke, is your proprioceptive sense responding to input. So I had to take a deep dive and understand, how do my senses respond first to what's happening for me to know what my body's response is. The second thing that I'll share to you as we're leading out of understanding what types of things you want to be mindful and pleasure mapping and how you could begin it. The other, a deep awareness that you don't just want to understand how you're responding to it and taking that inventory, that if you've also experienced a sexual trauma that you enjoy. So unfortunately, my second sexual trauma was also from a close person, right? Kind of just further feeding that percentage that T gave you guys. But it was somebody who wasn't family, but was like an uncle, right? There were two things that happened in that assault. One, I volunteered myself as sacrifice so that my sister didn't get harmed. So there was a part of me that felt like, I'm a die on this sword if it means they won't touch this person I love. So my need to be protective of things kicks in, and you, for a second, block out what you feel. But what became confusing to me is that as this person was penetrating me for a moment, I liked it. It felt good. And so I couldn't rationalize how this was something I didn't want, how this is something I didn't want to see happen to my sister, who was a virgin, unfortunately, And then somehow I'm sitting here thinking, for lack of a better term, this eggplant is eggplant. So when you have those confusing responses, you have a different level of awareness you want to have in pleasure mapping. You want to be sure that what you're feeling, does it feel good because I like it? Is it because somebody said it should feel good? Is it have that awareness? And then there's no goal. The only goal is discovery. So I just share that with you guys because sometimes people talk about these subjects, and we're in Sexual Assault Awareness Month specifically, guys, but they talk about these subjects and it sounds so easy. Just pay attention to this and pay attention to that. You might discover some things that you didn't even realize before in the process of mapping your pleasure about your trauma that you didn't know. Now, on the positive end, lingerie became the thing that also made me comfortable with sight, for example, right? I became body stockings and stuff like that. I fell in love with the way fishnet felt on my skin and how it made me look when I looked at myself. So I changed or reprogrammed my trauma from the thing I hated to the thing I love to see. The same thing with that confusion about what your body is aware of. I started listening to my yes and no responses in the bed and out. For example, when someone asks you to do something that you really don't want to do, but you about to fix your lips to say, okay, I'll do it. I started to get real familiar with what that felt like. You really don't want to do it. And my body is screaming no. So don't just look for the awareness in your intimate settings. Look for the other ways that your body, your gut is like, I don't feel good about this, or I don't want this, and trust that and listen to that as well. Now, kind of going into understanding outside of just that, we talked about where and how you like to be touched. We talked about intensity of the stimulation. Textures and sensations can come into play. Do you like something slippery, smooth? If it's too wet, does that turn you off? If it smells a certain way, does it make you feel this way? All those types of things you have an awareness of. And that comes into play when you step into the bed. So the first thing, and I'm going to ask Randa to come back up in this conversation as we are exploring ways that you can help mentally prepare to map that body, right? And let me also say to GPS that body, I had a woman this weekend who just is a survivor of breast cancer who shared that they use the word mapping your body in chemo and radiation. And for her, the word mapping was a trigger. So me taking my own recent lesson and bringing that, and saying, while you're figuring out the longitude and latitude to your orgasms, your GPS to that orgasm or your pleasure, the first thing that you might want to start with is your mind. Can we get a real quick check-in for our sapiosexuals? Like, where are we at? Can we get I feel like sapiosexual, we're my finger snappers. We're my people who love hearing that poetry or a sexy, sensual voice or bend that ass over. Well, where are you at when you like them to get up in your head? I see some snaps. I see the snaps on screen. Okay, because now we're feeling like we need to be. I know we talk about trauma, but it can be sexy. For my sapios, Randa, if you're the kind of person who, like you said, is obsessed with perfection, who can't get the hell out of your head for nothing, you trying to nap your pleasure, but you can't stop thinking. What are some ways that they can hit the reset button, take the edge off, and get that mind right? And I'm gonna do a quick shout out. I can't say this in a certain way, but for those of you guys, this might be for my 420 years a little bit too. Now, Randa, tell us, how in the hell am I gonna stop thinking about all this stuff?
Oh, how do you get up out your head? Now, we haven't mastered it, but I definitely got some tips and tricks for you.
Now that's honest. She said it's still in progress, y'all. But here's a few things that's been working. I can respect. This is how you know that when we talk about these products, we are not BSing, because she even told you we in progress.
It's a journey. It's a journey. One of the things that I do deal with my therapist is self-care. I take care of everybody else. Period. I don't even like it's 8 o'clock. I don't think I ate today. Anyhow, but how do we relax? How do we unwind? How do we take the edge off? How do we reduce anxiety? I really love my breath work. So the breathing, the deep breathing is something that you are able to do with no supplies, equipment, therapists. You can just, in any space, you can always do deep breathing exercises, even listening to calming music. But how do we relax and unwind? How do we put ourselves in a position of pampering so that we can start feeling better about connecting with our own body? I mean, it was never something that there's no class. This is how you connect to your body, and this is some good stuff, y'all. I'm just on a panel, but I'm really like taking it all in. Okay. It's really, 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 really good stuff.
So what's your favorite? And you use the word unwind. So you know what? I'm just gonna pick right
You
up.
already know.
I'm gonna pick right up on it. You said, how do we unwind? I thought there could have been a better question. So what's one of your favorite products in our unwind category? For those who don't know, that's our CBD infused, no THC, just CBD infused products. What's your favorite go-to unwind to help your mind open up and be ready for any kind of stimulation?
I got to pick one.
I mean, where would you start? What's the first one?
Okay. So we
That way
started
you ain't.
again. This is going back to what Coach T Lane was talking about, the non-sexual physical enjoyment without any penetration, intercourse, with the outer course. That's what she said, the outer course.
Yes.
I am a huge, huge fan of CBD products because they have such anti-inflammatory and healing properties. But we have a couple of options that I was just like, why don't you just let them know what they got available to you? So we have one of the favorites, which is our CBD serum. Now, this, my darling, is a basic oil. Okay, and it has, oh, let's not put it on the laptop. And it has a amazing lavender scent. Now, quick tip. I think there's some unwind on sale for the hump day, buy one, get one, but let me
It's
get
on
back to
sale
the-
for longer than Hump Day, actually. If we wanna get technical, we have little guy. We actually have our relaxation cream half off right now as one of our ongoing promotions that we got going on. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we got some unwind showing up and some of our other gift sets and things of that nature.
Yes, we do.
And we got a six pack. Don't we got a six
And
pack?
or it's great timing because I just ran out of the cream, and that cream is amazing. It's a nice, light, airy cream that I actually use as a night cream. I keep it in the fridge, and I use it as a night cream. You know, when you as seasoned as I am, you know, I'm 92. I need to keep moisturized. Okay, I get hot, and I need to keep moisturized. So the cream is phenomenal. Pop one in a bag, leave one in the spend a night bag. You're gonna thank me in the morning. But baby, listen, when they told me that we were coming out with a candle, I'm a candle girl. Again, we're talking about non-sexual physical experience. I want to show you all the top. This is our Unwind massage oil candle. It is a soy-based massage oil candle and all organic, of course. Now, what I do like about this is that when you burn it, you can pour the oil and massage that in. So having that warm sensation, those things are going to help relax you, help reduce any stress. Now, if you doing some real self service, some pampering time, then we going in the bathroom, right? Oh, there's nothing beats a nice long bath. So for my bath buddies, right? My buddies that like to take their bath. Of course, we have the salt scrub. Baby, baby. Now, I don't know if y'all know this, but Miss Cash Check Johnson over there loves a good bath. Loves. This salt scrub it's what is it? 175 milligrams of CBD. It's TH free. It's 5 ounces. Let me show you what it looks like on the inside.
Oh my God. And that bath salt, guys, I also love how soothing it is on the sense. It's not overpowering. It's so gentle. Okay, that's enough screen porn, Randall, for the bath takers. We know who.
I mean, are you
I still gotta be in this on this bed until 9 o'clock. Show it again at 9 before bath. I'm just kidding.
But even like today, I went to the gym and I'm achy. I still take out the oil, but when it comes in the sense of this conversation, again, being able to get out of your head. And I spend a lot of time in my head. Okay. So the scents of lavender, eucalyptus, the relaxation cream, the soothing serum, even the bubble bath, the salt scrub, all even velvet, baby. I don't even think we talked about velvet, but all of that helps to kind of wash away all of the outside, right? And that's one of the first steps. So I know we got some other stuff coming up. Before all else, before you try to start doing a self-mapping journey, this pleasure mapping journey, you've got to start with yourself and relax and unwind.
I love it.
That's all I'm gonna say about that.
That was a lot to say. It was a great thing. So I'll just let you guys know in the chat row, I dropped the link. If you guys, everything we talk about is in this category that you guys will have access to. BKBC in the chat. If you came here because a consultant invited you and anything we talk about really interests you, you want to grab it, make sure that you talk with your consultant, that you have their ID number. But BKBCs who are here, if you head over to your BK Kiss app and just head down to our website links category, make sure you've refreshed it. There is a direct link for you to share that with any guest that you invited here tonight that will make sure that they don't have to do the extra work. So I just wanted to make sure I share that information so that everybody can get what they need. Because after Randall did that on just bath products, it's really just about to get even more turned up. Before I hand it over to my girl, LaDonia, I know I got to talk about some things that go up in there. I just wanted to take a quick peek to talk about arousal and lube. Now, I think it was T, you mentioned that you and your partner, sometimes that massage come with just a little bit of a lube, rubbing on it. And when you said that, I was like, we must live in the same house and don't even know it. Because that's one of my favorite kickback things, like just casual. I like to do it to my partner. It's just something about, having that thing in my hand and stroking it just is empowering for me. I don't know what it is, y'all, but I'm like, oh, that's mine. But also I realize that anytime I want to have a tough conversation with him, and I do it, it actually helps his mind not focus on the difficulty of said conversation. But speaking of arousal, when you start pleasure mapping, my first recommendation is do it with the addition of nothing, right? Start with nothing but you, your hands, So you can feel how you feel, respond to hands and touch, because sometimes, but when you go straight into adding other things, you don't know what your response is to the baseline, right? Find your baseline and then build from there is my best recommendation. And I always tell people that that build up is what makes that release, just takes one from here to here. So often, even with those who maybe use toys and things, we go straight to the setting that gets us there sometimes, that we sometimes gotta let that baby start low and climb it up. So for arousal, what I realized is after mapping my pleasure, I started to find certain parts of my body that really like touch. One of the most interesting places that I discovered in that once I did it with my partner was my back was a really hot zone for me, that there were a lot of sensitive places there. But then I was finding weird places like in between the crevices of my arms and the backs of my knees, that if they kissed just right here, I'm like, why is that making me jump so much? It's not a zone on your body that's typically deemed as a sexual place. But with pleasure mapping, you want to be aware of the parts of your body that respond that are not necessarily genitals, right? Now, once you have that indication that I realize I like it, now I'm like, how can I take that to a new level? And that's where a lot of the arousal products are coming, right? So there are a few I'll name. And I'll tell you a little bit to help you choose or distinguish which one or twos or threes you might need. But our arousal products that are intended for your genital areas, like Sweet on Me, which is essentially a flavored arousal cream that also is designed to actually rush and stimulate a little bit of warmth, little situation. You know, those things start to get a little bit more moist in certain areas when you use this item. But this is perfect for a person who realizes that they like to add a little bit of extra taste. I'm never mad about anything that encourages the face to stay between my legs any longer. And Sweet on Me certainly helps give them another reason to stay down there. But if you're someone who's a little sensitive to taste and having too much texture, our Ignite Me could be a great alternative, as well as our Unwind Arousal Balm. As well. These are products that don't have a taste, but also add sensation. Now, I'll tell you, there's levels, right? When it comes to power, our Unwind Arousal Balm is actually the most powerful in delivering sensation. Then Ignite Me. Sweet on Me is actually the least, but it just has all those other additional bonuses. The point is, you're reaching into arousal products like these to now add greater sensitivity to an area that you already have discovered you love pleasure at. Right? And for most, the genitals, the clitoris, the tip of the penis, those areas are zones that you love. But what about the parts of the body that are not genitals, right? So something like Randa mentioned our candles, right? Those are great for adding heat sensation to areas of the body that might not be genitals, as well as something like our Sweet Spot. So the Sweet Spot is a honey flavored arousal gel that can be applied to the other areas. So I always tell people I would say, look at the areas that are already your spots and sweeten it up a little bit, right? If you're someone who could be a little shy, and this might sound crazy because I think my bedroom personality could be a little goofy and playful, but that's because sometimes when I'm a little nervous, I give a little bit of a energy, right? But if you're the kind of person who's a little shy and not all that comfortable with your partner exploring all over your body, I made a game out of this that I found was so fun, and I've also been really great for introducing it to partners who maybe have never brought things into the bedroom. So a Sweet Spot, you can easily apply it to a few spots on your body. As you're rubbing it in, you'll feel it start to get a little warm against your skin, which is sensitizing that area. And then I would tell my partner, I put the Sweet Spot on 6 different places on my body. And I would tell them to search my body with their tongue to find them, or their mouth to find them. So as they're venturing, they'll know they found the sweet spots because they're going to taste like honey, right? But they'll also see a reaction because that area has already been sensitized a little. So that's something that I discovered pleasure mapping myself. Hey, why don't I try sensitizing different parts of my body that I like to be touched, and then build on that. And then you see how that can be something that graduates to something you can do with a partner as well. Now, lube. Wetter is always better, but I think the biggest misconception about lube is that it's just to make it wet. And it's also designed to protect you. So for someone who not only has experienced sexual assault in the past, but maybe you're someone who's undergoing chemotherapy or radiation for cancer treatment. Maybe you're someone who's had a hysterectomy. Maybe you have a tilted uterus. Maybe you have other circumstances that can make sexual experiences a little bit more traumatizing because of discomfort. Lube is one thing that you can incorporate in all of those instances to add extra comfort and protection, right? It's going to put a nice layer of coating for those who have vulvas on that vaginal wall to protect you from tearing, because a large partner could be rather traumatizing without the right tools to support the size. But in addition to that, you have different varieties. So T mentioned using a lube. You can use our CBD serum that has that CBD effect that's going to make things very sensitive and sensual. You can also look at lubes that might last a little longer for different areas of the body. For example, our Sleek, which is the silicone lube, or our Silk that has silicone mixed with water base, especially if you're in that back door area. Okay. The vulva area, for those of us who have those, might help us out, but that rear ain't helping nobody. It ain't giving you no liquid, no lube, no nothing. So it's up to you to pick the right thing to go on with that. Look. And I think all of us here can agree with that. So make sure that you're looking at lubes that might add comfort. And for me, the three I recommend as the top right now are our Unwind Serum, our Silk Hybrid Lube, or our Sleek. Also T-Lube. Sorry, I said 3, 4. T-Lube. We also T-Lube was designed for trans males, but it has aloe in it, which can be really good for an area that might have experienced a good amount, maybe childbirth, things of that nature. So I just wanted to make sure that if we're going to talk about the other things, we have to talk about the things that might add sensation, but also lube will change how your body feels these things, right? So try using a hand without lube and then using it with. Try using a toy without lube and using it with. The same with your partner. And then just be mindful of the difference of what you experience with and without. That's really one good way for you to understand it. Now, I got a little something extra, a little more in there that I know Lady D gonna give to you. But what do you do if you are mapping your pleasure when you are experimenting with penetration, right? So especially if you've experienced a trauma that might have been penetration associated, where do you start? What kind of product? So Lady D, can you talk to us a little about some pleasurable penetration?
Sure. I sure can. So, this beautiful toy right here is one of our pleasure penetration toys, which is called Amaze. Now, it looks amazing. The shaft is something that is designed to actually hit the G spot.
Lady
Now,
D, remember what I said about sight?
I
You stroking the hell out of that toy, girl.
I'm sorry, I thought
Trying to
I
focus
did
on your
something wrong.
words. But
I'm
she's
sorry, I thought I did something wrong.
I couldn't even hide my natural reaction. I got red and everything just now. I'm sorry. Because she started doing that thing. And I was like, you know,
I'm just trying to show the people the benefits of a maze, because the G spot's only 3 inches up, right, you guys? And so with a maze, you can with just the this here,
Ray
you
said,
can
don't stop her. I'm sorry, Ray. Go back. Give him the full experience. I'm sorry, Ray.
so so the shaft is a length that can just get right to the G spot. And then you have the rabbit like tickler here, which for me, who don't like fingers, this would please me very well in stimulating my clitoris as well as my vestibular bulbs, because that vulva is many different sensations there. You can rub this thing everywhere, but get into the maze of penetration. And we do have another toy called Cuddle. I don't have that here with me. But Cuddle was another toy that you can use, which is just a toy for penetration. It's not dual like a maze, but it helps with,
I don't have
yeah,
it in front of me either, but the tip of it is more
yeah.
than.
And it's great to get the job done while being penetrated. So, just stroke it, give this to your partner, to yourself, treat yourself to being, stimulated, and of course use lube. So you want to apply lube here. put that loop there, and then you just take your time and just, so this is just one of our great penetration toys that is something that you can use to help get the job done. Yeah, dual. Dual is two. So clitoral, and then you're gonna be penetrated. So I'm gonna pass that on, but check out Amaze as well as Cuddle. These are some great penetration toys. I'm gonna hold on to it for those who want to continue to look at it though.
Um, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your very visual display of those products. I got my maze here, and I might feel more empowered to map this one again. But I love what you shared about it. I love that you held it against your hand because size is important. So, penetration is something that you're like on an edge about. You're not really sure if it's something you're ready for, but you want to try it out. You want to venture it. The size of this is not intimidated. It's made to get to that G spot. And so it could be a really great beginner toy or a reintroduction to sex if you have been a little hyposexual and maybe it's been a little while. But even if you have, it's not something that's going to get up in there and shred your walls. It's going to go straight to that magic spot. So I think Amaze for sure. Now I don't know if I can handle any more stroking, but I know that Miss T got another stroker.
I do. And this is, I guess, kind of like what Lady D was talking about, like finding pleasure through penetration. I think I'm going to piggyback on that. So if you've experienced trauma through penetrative intercourse or sex, because it wasn't intercourse, it was penetrative sexual trauma, and you want to learn how to still experience pleasure from penetration, this toy right here that I'm about to show y'all, this one has been a game changer for my women clients and their partners. And even, myself, like, I've been with my husband for 15 years now. Even though I experienced trauma through penetration, I didn't want to see sex as a traumatic thing for the rest of my life. I refused to. Going back to what I told y'all in the beginning, like, I learned that we all have a superpower, and that's the ability to change anything negative, transform it into something positive. So we passed the trauma, the sad part now. We talking about pleasure, on the pleasurable side. So this toy right here that everybody fell in love with, even my clients who, and I'm gonna show you how even males can use it too, if they're wanting to learn how to experience pleasure through penetration. But even my female clients who thought they would never enjoy penetration, never could get into it, this was a game changer for them. And it's the Stroke of Genius. All right, let's just get into it real quick. Because one of the things I love about Bedroom Candy is the attention to detail and attention to quality. This is 100% silicone. I always say this looks like a little stingray. We're going to talk about what this thing do in just a second. But this is the toy that I recommend to my female clients for G-spot homework or penetrative homework. You can use this to figure out, like, by yourself first, what do you like penetration wise? Like, if you're someone like myself, like my body shut down, like I enjoy the act of sex and being intimate, but I wasn't feeling anything because my trauma, like, it just shut down. I couldn't feel. So this, and like some of my clients, when you use it, it helped you to realize, like, oh, okay, I do got some feeling down there. And let me just, hold on, let me turn it on. You press and hold the power button down for 3 to 4 seconds. And you see how it mimics, you get the feel of like a real something penetrating you, or a real penis if you into penis penetration, because it's thrusting inside. You can flick through, you can decide. Kasha was talking about intensity earlier. Like, do you want it slow? Do you like fast thrust? And then if you are a vulva owner, for many of you, if you've experienced penetration trauma, then you need clitoral stimulation. You need that in order to get that heightened sensitivity to reaching an orgasm. So this little stingray right here, it has its own button where you can change the intensity of that to give you what you need. You may need a little bit more pressure on your clitoris to get to your orgasm. And just, we like to educate even when this is penetrating you, it's still like your clitoris being stimulated. That's how you get your orgasm from the inside, just the clitoris being stimulated from the inside. But this is amazing. And I just spoke about how to use it if you're a vulva owner. But if you are a penis owner and you want to learn how to see penetration as something that's not trauma, but pleasurable. Oh, y'all talking. This is the stroke of genius, Miss Crawford. The stroke of genius, okay? But if you're a male and you're wanting to learn how to see penetration as a pleasurable thing, let's talk, or even in anal, even if you're not a male and you want to see anal penetration as a pleasurable thing, simply just turn it over. The shape of the anal canal, this goes with it. You can insert it that way. And cassia soda is like, y'all want to make sure y'all using lube. And this is the lube I was telling y'all about earlier that me and my husband like to make sure that we keep. On standby, we keep at least 2 bottles.
That's my favorite.
You think I'm lying? Like, no. He just brought them in to me. We keep at least 2 bottles. But when you're using a toy, especially in your anal area, you want to use lubrication. So lube it up, then put it in. And if you are a male, this little tickler right here, the Stingray, it's gonna stimulate the male G spot, which y'all put it in the chat. Anybody in our chat, do y'all know what the male G spot is? Because this is gonna penetrate it from outside, or this is penetrating from the inside or stimulating it from the inside. I don't see nobody put that in there yet. Okay. But even female, if you experience trauma through anal penetration and you're wanting to learn how to see it as a pleasurable thing, you're like, I'm not gonna see that as traumatic. I want to give it a try. I be hearing the hype. I want to see it as pleasurable too. You can still put it in that way too. And you can even have this low. If it's too much for you, you can flick through your intensities. But yeah, is it the tank? I don't know, Miss Corrine. I don't know if it's the tank. I'm looking for another word. Okay, Trinity, the gooch. That's the slang for it, the gooch. But what is it? What's the male G spot?
The answer is there. It's there in the chat. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, the prostate. And yeah, and even with that, like, I know just to go a little bit in because we like to educate. Like, if you are male, like, don't be afraid to have your prostate stimulated and massaged, okay? You can keep yourself from developing some health issues by having that prostate milked every now and then. And I would rather have it milked at home intimately than by a doctor. Okay. But the last one that I want to show is our sister Lady D was speaking earlier. Thank you again for sharing your story too, Lady D. And she was talking about how, her trauma took place with fingers. So she doesn't want fingers, but she still wants to feel some stimulation that fingers may give. And so if you can relate to Lady D's story, one of the favorites in the Bedroom Candy community is the Get in Touch. And this is a finger vibe. So you can use this I always say first start with yourself because you can't expect anything from anybody else that you ain't able to give yourself. And that's on with anything. But so start with yourself, put this on your fingers. And again, with all our toys, this power button is on the bottom. So you just press and hold it down for 3 to 4 seconds. Use that good old lube with it and just explore your body. If you're a vulva owner, and you're trying to learn how to see sex as a pleasurable thing, first start with clitoral stimulation. Because the clitoris, I always say, vulva owners, God meant for us to enjoy sex and to experience pleasure because the clitoris is the only organ on a human body that's meant only for orgasm. It serves no other purpose. The penis owners, their penis is also for eliminating waste through urine. So, but the clitoris' only purpose is for you to have a pleasurable feeling from sexual stimulation. So take this and explore yourself. Do that pleasure mapping. See if it's the right side of your clit that needs that stimulation. Or maybe it's the center part up and down. Or maybe it's the left. Figure out, again, intensity. That word is coming back. What's your intensity? And if you are a penis owner, you can still just use this to rub. I would use it on a low setting if you want to rub the testicles or the balls rather. But this is very beginner friendly. The stroke of genius might be something that may be a little next level for you, but this is very beginner friendly. And I also recommend this for if you are that one who's past that place of, you're you're not seeing it as traumatic. You've done the work, you've done the therapy, you got rid of the limiting beliefs that you had around sex, and you're ready to take it up a notch. Like, this is something that next level for you that's amazing. And I believe it's like 20 different speeds and patterns on this little thing.
Yeah.
She's very
Yeah.
powerful.
Get in touch is gonna find, it's gonna get in touch for sure. So first of all, T, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you talked about Get in Touch because it's just a great product for beginner, but I love how unisex of a product it is as well. And I think that that's one of the coolest parts of it. As I'm gonna pass it to Chris really quick to share a quick something with you. I just wanted, it's not in our lineup, but while you spoke on Get in Touch and you spoke on the prostate, I did want to share for you guys, like we said, this conversation does impact men. I never forget, I had a client of mine whose problem was that they didn't like getting oral sex, a man who didn't like head. I know, right? But this gentleman was molested by a babysitter who used to stroke him and, do exactly that to him. And so he really didn't have positive associations. And then he got double traumatized, unfortunately, because he got to college and tried to do some wild threesome stuff. And I guess a woman had him in her mouth while another partner was penetrating her, and maybe the penetration was a little heavy because she ended up kind of biting down on him a little bit, right? Just out of a good, So he was just like, I just don't think head is for me. I didn't have too many bad experiences. So while she spoke about that, I did want to just throw a quick spotlight to our sidekick, because for men with MAP and pleasure, this can be a really great way for you to explore that stimulation and that feeling. But for that part, that client at the time, it was a different product we carried, but I recommend something like this that could be a healthy replica for that feeling, but would allow him to get comfortable with the feeling of, that type of stimulation. So thank you so much for bringing up the P spot, T, because we ain't playing about this inclusivity, y'all. Now, speaking of that, I want to turn over to you, Chris, because you had two interesting products, and then one of which got a little bit of love already, but the other one, I think we all want to hear your mapping recommendations for this one. Can you talk to us about the product, some of the products you would share with folks who might be mapping some pleasure?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start by just reiterating a little bit of what Chief said. That's silk. Don't sleep on that silk, okay? Don't sleep on it. So especially if you're in for backdoor play. I'm just going to say, if you look at that right there, like, look at that. Oh, that just makes me ready to get fucked. Okay. Okay. I'm just saying. Okay. So the thing about that lube, so, okay, you got water-based lubricant, right? And then you got silicone lubricant. Water-based dries out. And as Miss Kasha just stated, ain't that much moisture going on back there naturally. It ain't just happening. Some of us, blessed with all the extra, good juices, but it ain't just naturally just getting wet back there. I Kasha laughing. and then silicone lubricant, sometimes for most people, even me, it's just too oily. It's just too greasy. It stains, it's messy, whatever. It's just not my preference. You know what I mean? But that silk hits it right on spot. Okay? Hits it right on spot. It keeps you wet. Now, I'm just gonna, we family now. I'm gonna share with y'all. So since I like group sex, I like, threesome, foursome, 7 more. Cash, I'm serious.
You got time for the after party?
that silk, I mean, it keeps you wet. Okay, it keeps you wet. Keeps that area protected. That's the other thing. Keeps you protected from tearing. We don't want to tear, because a tear is breeding ground for other stuff. We don't want that. So yeah, silk. All right, moving right along. Just had to share that little bit of 2 cents because I do not sleep on silk. All right. So the other thing I want to share with y'all is literally one of my favorite toys we offer. It's so phenomenal. It has its own huge privacy pouch, satin pouch. It is called the Succinct Sex Swing. Okay. Now I love this because Our sex swing is versatile. Travel with you, hotel, Valentine's Day, Father's Day, whatever the day may be, it travels with you, okay? And it's so simple. It has a couple components here. It has this part here, and it has this part here. These two parts, you just want to put over your door, shut your door, and I recommend locking it from the inside and done. That's all the setup it requires. It's so easy to use. What the sex swing is a sex swing. Let me phrase that one more time. What the suspense is a sex swing. And it is phenomenal. It's an over the door sex swing, and it's so easy to use. I'm going to stand up real quick, so bear with me if y'all can't see me. So essentially, you get it out of your bag, just like this. Let me know if y'all can't hear me, because I can hear you. Somebody speak to me real quick. Perfect. Okay. So you put it on your door. I like to face this handle here. This is your hand handle. And you also have one on this side. I like to face those to me when I'm putting it on my door. And then I put it over the door, shut the door, lock it. Bam. That's all the setup is required. Now, couple things. You have your two handles here for each hand. And then at the bottom here, you got your feet handles. That's what we're gonna call them. You can call your feet rest, your feet handles, whatever you want to call them. And then this is your seat cushion. Very, very comfortable. So when you get in it, I recommend to my customers 2 different ways you can do it. If you have your partner with you, if you're doing like one-on-one, then they can help you get in it. They can help you lift yourself. They can lift the seat up, whatever your case may be. Me, if I was demonstrating this right now, I'm in a public place, so I can't really demonstrate it for real. Because I'd get in my little jock strap on, whatever, and I do it for you. I don't give a flying fat monkey. But
I'll be reaching out at a later time to reclaim that footage for you all. Sorry, Miss Carry on. We don't forget, but go ahead.
And so, you bring it on the ship. Somebody bring it on the ship. All right, let's see.
It'll be in my bag. Bring it. Is that where you need me to bring it? I am in suspense waiting for this one. I'll tell you that.
Okay. And let me just tell you, the whole thing is very, very comfortable. But as I was saying, so the way I like to get into it is I like to sit in it at its lowest point. Okay. So you have the option to use these straps here to raise and lower your feet and to raise and lower your cushion, your butt. Okay. There's a total of 1, 2, 3. There's a total of 4 loose straps. 2 of them are one for each leg, foot to go up, spread eagle, and the other 2 help you raise both sides of your butt evenly up. Okay. Again, the way I like to get into it is I like to get into the seat at its lowest point on the door, and then I have the upper body strength to raise and lower myself up myself, side by side. Okay, just like this. It's like you're stroking 2 big damn dicks, just like that. Okay. Hey, y'all.
Look, I can't even join y'all. I'm just so damn locked in.
Once
That's what we'll react when we see each other.
Once you up there in the position you want to be in, then it's working on your feet. Okay. So literally the way that the feet work, the cushions here, let me find it real quick. Okay. Okay. So once you raise up there, you got your foot just like this. It goes in just like this. See this? That's how it is. Okay. And picture that being suspended in the air, right? Well, with that loose strap that's designed to raise and lower that, you can raise your foot right here, wherever you want, or completely spread eagle to where you just like this on both sides. Does that make sense? And so what it does, yeah, I got some flexibility there, y'all. Okay. Hey. And so what it does,
I'm just wondering what kind of establishment he's sitting in now. That's all.
It's Starbucks, but I don't care. It's
Starbucks.
And so what it does, girl, I've been in public. We ain't gonna go there. But what it does is it gets you the perfect angle for penetration. I mean, for real. And so that's why that silk is a perfect pairing, because when you already prelude, as I like to be, you in that angle for it to go as deep as possible. Now, if you like me, you can work with a 6 incher. You can work with a bigger, a nigga. If you can work with it all, um, it it gets you right there. You don't got to do no work. They get it slow slide right in, and that swing gives them full control to bring you up on their dick like this. Okay. And the other thing about the sex swing, it is so versatile for them to use different positions, different ways in it. You can even use it bent over or in it, just like I did it. I don't want to go too far, but yeah, get the idea. I'll figure out demonstration later.
He didn't say I don't want to go too far after he done busted open the Starbucks. He did not just do it. Okay, look, just give it on up. Now, what I would tell you that I loved about Chris choosing a swing to talk about is it's probably not a conversation of a product you might think about in this instance, right? But remember, I talked about those senses. There's another one. Okay, so we got proprioceptive, and we also got vestibular, which is the sense that basically makes you feel like you elevated in the air. You know, when they say they snatched your soul or whatever the case, it's like that out of body moment. Now, the interesting thing about it is for some people, trying out certain positions, especially if you're someone like me who's got a little size on them, my partner might not be able to hold me in the air, things like that. But if you want to be able to experiment with how you feel about things like suspension or just something out of the ordinary, this could be a really great place to do it. However, you guys might see that from that end, but with this swing, okay, this is keeping it 1,000% real. There's a multitude of different varieties of positions, and all of that is fun. But what I've found is the swing is something that I really enjoy when we talk about a specific area, and that is in kinks and BDSM, and it starts to toggle into that restraint area because you're kind of pinning those legs to a certain point, you're keeping yourself suspended in a certain place. And I want to talk to you guys today a little bit about having control and agency in your pleasure. Now, I'm not going to take as much time to talk about this as I was, because I mean, we were completely engulfed in that, but we are a little bit beyond time now. But what I will speak about is when people come and have conversations with me about exploring the less conventional side of sex, because sometimes after having certain experiences, you realize that you might actually be open to some things that you didn't know that you were before. Okay, but also the control and agency that shows up as something like BDSM can be a great pair alongside therapy and things like that for you to. Sometimes when you having therapy, talk therapy allows you to talk it out, but certain things allow you to feel it out, right? BDSM is one of probably the areas of the largest misconception when it comes to the sex side of things. Like people think about different pleasure. Sex is not necessarily even something that has to be present in the practice of BDSM. Let me just state that first. People think that it has to have it, and it is not something that is required, but people negotiate, and it's sometimes a part of it. But what I really want to open your mind to up is the healing aspect. Okay. And for some reasons that you might think yoga is beneficial, BDSM can also be beneficial because it includes breath work, rhythm, and repetition. Okay. So it's common denominator, two things you might not have thought. Now, a lot of part of it is that there's been a lot of research and there's been a lot of evidence that supports how valuable breath work, like Randa just talked about, has phenomenal benefits when it comes to things like depression, anxiety, regulating your nervous system when your nerves are a little high, things like that. And the same way, rhythm and repetition is associated with grounding and a sense of stability, safety, predictability, because sometimes people have a hard time when they're on edge with things that they don't know or what's to come. So it allows you to take a time to focus on your breathing while potentially enduring different sensations, including pain, right? But in a way that you're able to have control, right, and full autonomy over how far it goes, because you always have a way to take your power, right, to stop an interaction. You have safe words, you have all these types of things that are put in place as a way for you to be able to tell someone that I want it to keep going, I want it to end, or whatever, right? So now we done talked about rhythm, repetition, breath, all of those types of things. But let's for 2 seconds talk about guiding principles in this area, because I find that sometimes this exploration, and you might be mapping your pleasure, leads you to a place of having some things you enjoy that you really can't explain. This is a practice that's going to, because people think it doesn't have affection, but this is a practice going to put care, communication, trust at the front. So a lot of times there are conversations you have along the line, but in something like kink, exploration, or BDSM, those conversations happen up front. Something called the negotiation allows you to talk about the things you're comfortable with, that you're not, and for you to set parameters to let someone know. So safe words, red light system, green, go, yellow, slow down, red. So it allows you to engage in these things in a way that you can make sure it don't go too far. But if it's going somewhere you like, where you could green light it continuing. It also has a heavy check-in component. You're constantly checking in, you're constantly paying attention, and it actually puts the conversation up front in a way that allow you to set the boundaries and ensure that you're engaging into activities with people who respect your boundaries. So anyone who's experienced a trauma, especially that of assault, where that ability to say yes or no may have been taken away from you, or you didn't know, now you are in a position where you can get that boundary right up front. Here's my hard lines, here are my hard limitations, here's the things that I don't like, here's what I'm not so sure about, whatever. If you ask me, these are healthy tools in any relationship. You want people who you trust, who communicate, who care about you, who respect your boundaries, right? So these are not bad things. But the other part of it is that BDSM puts a heavy emphasis on safety and sanity, like, over the consensual behaviors that occur. What does that mean? Well, people, for one, being sane means you're not under some influence, right? Sometimes people don't have a regulation of understanding what their body likes because they drink so they don't feel, for example, right? It's one way. They might partake in certain activities that takes their mind away as their own way of coping with the trauma, as opposed to dealing with it head on sometimes. So at BDSM, you're not engaging in these things in a way in which your ability to be clear and coherent is jeopardized. And if a person is, then it doesn't go forward, right? On either end, not just a dominant, but a submissive person as well. Nobody can be under the influence, or should be. So there's that. Then the other part of it that I want people to think about, because you do get to feel how your body responds under certain stresses. And like I said earlier, you can reprogram some of that trauma through BDSM and exploring with breath play and being choked and all those types of things. I realized, I used to get spanked when I was young. I used to sometimes even have to pick out the switch that I was going to get hit with, right? As a child, if you had some old school Southern parents, you know what I'm saying? That might have been now here I am still choosing out my tools. You could put me in these cuffs. You could put me in, you never know. But now I don't have the association with that hit, because now I'm being hit with an instrument because I want to be. And in any instant, if I wanted to stop, I'm going to shout that word and everything comes to a halt. So think about also re-entering exploration of your pleasure and recognizing that sometimes it does take you places that you never knew you'd land. But this is one of those areas. Lastly, and I'll leave with this one, is the aftercare component. See, a lot of people talk about what's happening during. But I don't know about y'all. I'm certainly not the girl who you can make come and then toss a wet rag on, right? So I need a little bit of love and care. That doesn't show up the same for everyone. For me, I like food to be there. If it's there, I'm real happy. Some food makes me feel comfort, warm. I've associated it with positive feelings. So it might be, baby brought me a bottle of water and a little snack and ask me how I'm feeling and check in with me or hug me or hold me. Some people don't like to be touched. Some people are so sensitive after experiencing certain types of pleasure that they're too sensitive, and any further touch just continues to keep them in a jittery, anxious space. So that aftercare, that presence of saying, how do I feel getting ready? How do I feel during? But also checking in after to make sure that you feel that you've come out of that experience with the proper care. That can be that way with a partner, but also for yourself, right? I might set the scene, put the lingerie on, do this and this and that, might get in the mirror, put the right music on, put them candles in the air, have all of this. But after I have that strong release, right? My aftercare for myself, might be having my bath already ready for me to step into the tub and let my body now decompress and relax. So ask yourself, what does it look like for you after the experience to re-regulate and reground? He said that energy is not only something that can be transferred and be used in other ways, but it's unpredictable. And you never know how it's going to show up. Unwinds can be really great in an aftercare, maybe, have an essential situation. It ends with a nice rub of the cheek with some creams or whatever. Did someone said my voice went out again? Thank you, Kwanda. Y'all hear me now? I do want to, while we're going to close now, probably over for those who mentioned, you will have access to a guide that will give you a little bit more depth to some of the things we talked about. But I did want to talk and mention that if you're someone who has some special circumstances, things like we mentioned, chemo, radiation, we mentioned reproductive postpartum can come into play there. And if you've had other things like vaginismus or stuff like that, there are some specific sets of things you might want to be mindful of as you're exploring your body. So make sure that if you do have any medical or any of those types of challenges, that you clear anything you're trying with the medical professional that you might be working with, like whether it be your OBGYN, if you're postpartum or whatever the case is, just because your body under those things sometimes come out of it with changes. And even if you thought you knew what your pleasure looked like before, after experiencing some of these things or going through them, it may change. So just keep an openness there. Now, as we're closing out, I want to ask if we could kind of come in with some closure, guys. We talked about products, positions, exploring our pleasure, identifying the traumas, the different ways it might show up, all of those things. But what I really want to take a quick moment to pour everyone's attention to, like we said, is a part of the healing. If you found yourself being a person who would love to be a part of helping others heal, in the way that this conversation may have been helpful for so many, we want to talk to you a little bit about how we've taken this into Bedroom Candy and how Bedroom Candy has created an opportunity for us to empower folks to take charge and take back their bodies and their pleasure. The common denominator tonight is that regardless of what each and every story has been that you've heard, we're all on this platform. The common denominator is doing the work, being aware that you're still in the process of the work. Chris talked about it. He said, I didn't even know I was going to feel this way, but I'm feeling this way. Randa said it. She's like, I am doing this for y'all, but I'm taking it in. I experience a lot of those moments myself. That's the thing I love most about what we do, because there's, to the learning that you had experienced, but all here. Someone said the voice is acting up. I don't know what's going on tonight, y'all.
That's so good. You know, you really accustomed to breaking the internet when we pop up on
I
these
asked
things.
my people on the damn stage to tell me, and the only way y'all are telling me is by laughter. And then I look at the chat and they telling me. So let me just say,
Oh,
let me go on the record and say, y'all ain't shit. I'm just kidding.
that's why we love it here.
It's so
Like
funny.
it really
It ain't
is.
gotta be perfect. It ain't gotta be perfect, y'all.
No.
We just show up and we do, but we cannot predict this type of stuff. All in
Come
all,
on.
Brenda, can you take a moment to take us home about Bedroom Candy? What types of benefits they can experience if they decide that they want to become a part of the mission of empowering and educating while earning a little bit of change?
For sure. I mean, listen, this is what we do. These good times, these great experiences, we are, as Bedroom Candy consultants, leadership and beyond, we are demystifying the stigma of sex. And it really wasn't, if you are in any way interested in exploring this not only for your own self-benefit, because we do empower others, but really tonight I'm empowering myself, to be honest with you. I want to do some more legwork and find out why I like choking so much. Like, what happens? You know what I mean? Like, I want to do the work now, but it's becoming a part of the family, a part of the community. These things come into play. You know, when you join Bedroom Candy, you know, it's super easy to join. You connect with the consultant that invited you to this amazing experience. If you do not have your own personal Bedroom Candy consultant, you just go to the main page, go to bedroomcandy.com. It's dropped in the link is dropped in the chat, and you select join, and you will be associated and aligned with a team that can support you along your journey. So a lot of us are making funds while we having fun. And that's really the long and the short of it. And yes, we are, you know, we are 100%, we get high on our own supply. If you did not know before tonight, okay? We 100. Also, and listen, I just love y'all.
Apparently, we also get high off the visuals of people demonstrating our supply. Because I
Baby.
definitely got high tonight. I'm not gonna lie. Kristen busted over. She glazed it over like it was you know, we saw that she definitely got this down pat
You're messing up again,
right here.
Catherine.
All of that, and then Kristen just busted over.
Yeah.
My computer is
Okay.
equally as overwhelmed today at this point.
Can
I'm
I
gonna
add
screen
something
share,
to
and Randa,
that?
if you could just yeah. Can you hear me?
I was just to piggyback on that opportunity side, like just one of the I'm such a big nerd. I do a lot of reading. So one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I believe it's chapter 11 where it talks about the art of sex transmutation. And so again, on the business side, if you know someone, I have a lot of people on my team who actually came into Bedroom Candy because of experiencing trauma that made them hypersexual, and they were looking for an outlet for that energy. Like, you're someone with that high sexual energy, like, pour it into entrepreneurship. There's something powerful about, even if you don't know you're using it, like that sexual energy transfers into dollars. Not, you know, I told y'all my story. I was in the strip club, so not dollars on the phone, but dollars in like just making a difference and empowering others. Just pouring that energy in something else is so magnetic. So yeah, if that's you, if you resonate with that side of what we talked about tonight, this is definitely the place to be. Your energy will like just open doors for you to be successful, and you'll feel empowered by it because you're doing it for a positive cause.
You know, and T, on that note, I want to share this screen. I think a huge part of what you said, and tell me if y'all don't hear me. I don't know. I hear all y'all perfectly. So I can't tell. Okay. A huge part of what we do is doing it with responsibility. Recognizing, like I shared earlier, that sometimes we having conversations that we can have, but when it comes to that next tier, that we want to encourage you to seek out the right help, and especially there and have access to it more available. You know, more than an email, post this event with the YouTube link for replays. But on the back of the guidebook you received, there's a resources page. It showcases some very clickable links here. These are all clickable links if it's in pink like this, where there are some websites for different types of situations: adult survivors of abuse, male survivors. Also has a state law database where you can research the legality of certain certain sex crimes and statutes of limitations on them, state by state, because they're different everywhere you are. So take advantage of that, share it with anyone who might need it. More importantly, we always love the idea of all of us being brave, and that acronym meaning believe them when someone comes to you, respect confidentiality, ask a person what support looks like for them, value their boundaries, and emphasize that everyone deals with trauma. And that's one of the biggest things, right? It's important that people don't feel alone. So ultimately, thank you all so much tonight for coming out. I'm going to drop again in the chat the link to catch up with some of the items we had, but I want to say thank you so much for your vulnerability, transparency, honesty, all of the things. And I'm hoping that each and every one of you guys on the virtual stage tonight got a little decompress something ready for you already. But I will say, not only thank you for helping others heal, thank you for my continued healing. Because I think it's always ongoing. The work never ends. So thank you so much for helping, guys. At the end, let me close out on YouTube really quick. I'm sorry. And we are going to conclude tonight's event. We're 4 minutes over, y'all. I think we did all right. I think we did all right. Big shout out to everyone here. Christopher called me for the after party. If y'all
Nah,
want
I'm gonna need a conference call on that. Don't try it.
y'all welcome to, I was about to say, if you want to come to the after party, y'all are welcome. But no, we're gonna stop talking about trauma. We just gonna get raw. I'm just kidding. Everybody have a great night. Thank you again to our presenters. Bye, everyone.
Good night. Good night.